Welcome back. We've been considering setting our mind on things above, not on the things of the earth, as we look toward praying in that spiritual realm, considering the spiritual war that we are called to be a part of. We spent some time seeing from Paul's writing to the church of Colossae about how we then can do that, seeking those things which are above, and then considering from the life of Job, an individual who dealt with, on an earthly realm, the afflictions that actually had a spiritual or heavenly origin, and then by faith being able to give God the glory, looking to Him, knowing, operating based upon what we know in the spiritual realm. And so Job, even before the Bible's ever written, is declaring, "For I know that my Redeemer lives, and that at the last He will stand on the earth. And this I know, that in my flesh, after my flesh has been destroyed, that in my flesh I will see God." We want to transition now even more than focusing on that spiritual war and the place of prayer that's within it. Ephesians chapter 6, verses 10 to 18 is clearly a classic passage dealing with the battle that's there and the challenge to us to put on the whole armor of God. But sometimes we focus on the armor part and we miss the rest of the context that's being there, and actually what the strength and the vigor, the life of the armor really is. I'd like to read Ephesians chapter 6, verses 10 to 18, and we're going to spend a few days breaking this out. Ephesians 6, beginning of verse 10. "Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of His might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. Therefore, take up the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand. Stand therefore, having girded your waist with truth, having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and having shod your feet with the preparation of the gospel of peace. Above all, taking the shield of faith, with which you will be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked one. And take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, praying always with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit, being watchful to this end, and with all perseverance and supplications for all the saints." And then Paul adds in verse 19, "And for me, that utterance may be given to me, that I might open my mouth boldly to make known the mystery of the gospel, for which I am an ambassador in chains, that in it I may speak boldly as I ought to speak." There is this spiritual realm against which we fight and battle. Job, when he was going through his afflictions, wouldn't have seen the conflict, the discussion, the debate that was going on in the heavenly realms. His quote-unquote friends didn't see that. All they saw was the physical, fleshly part of the battle that Job was going through. When Jesus crossed the Sea of Galilee for Capernaum over into the region of the Gadarenes, he had a spiritual appointment, if you remember, and that was he was going to go cast the demons out of the man who, from the worldly perspective, seemed to be psychotic. He was cutting himself. He was unruly. He seemed to be out of his mind. And that's what the people had seen. They would try to put him in chains and try to put him aside, but he'd break the chains. But Jesus knew that there was more to that there was actually a spiritual realm that was being dealt with at that moment. And so when Jesus arrives into the region of the Gadarenes, this man who is naked comes running down, gets on his knees before Jesus, but then the demons cry out, we're told. "What have we to do with thee, Jesus, thou Son of God? Have you come to destroy us before our time?" And Jesus casts the demon out. And the man then is there in his right mind, and they clothe him. And it causes all the people in the area to be filled with wonder and amazement. And yet they tell Jesus to leave because the demons had left and went into their pigs, and the pigs ran into the sea, and they had an economic issue going on. But the issue is that there is that which we see in this earthly realm, the flesh and blood part. But behind the scenes, there is this other battle that's going on, this spiritual war that's happening, I believe, more often than not, and more often than we realize, around us at all times. But for the most part, we don't see it. And it's hard for us to comprehend that we're actually fighting against an unseen foe. And that's what Paul here strives for us to comprehend as we get into this area, that we do not wrestle against flesh and blood. And then he lists this listing, which I'm not going to get into at this very moment. But against principalities, powers, the rulers of the darkness of the age, spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenlies. In the heavenlies. There is this spiritual war for which we have got to be prepared for, in which we've got to be a part of. That's one of the major aspects of prayer. Prayer, again, is communication with God in worship. It is the essence of our communicative relationship with God. I, being adopted as his child, have a desire to have this communication with my Abba, with my Father, and yet there is a purpose and a point to the conversation as well. When I was a child, I thought like a child. I spoke like a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. Childishness is self-centeredness. Gimme, 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 gimme. It's the focus fully on me. And every time I come to mom and dad, all I'm thinking about is me, 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 me. But as I mature in my relationship with the Father, I'm more interested in what's going on in his life, what his plans and purposes are, and how I can come alongside those, not how he can come alongside mine. And his plans and his purposes are so much higher than mine. Take time today to pray with an awareness of the spiritual realm that we actually enter into. And then have a blessed day.